Hey everybody, my name is Aidan Charron. I am the Associate Director of Global Earth Day. Today I'll be speaking with Michaela Guzy to answer the question, can you truly travel sustainably? Michaela Guzy owns an award-winning content house that focuses on people, places, and purposes through the editorial lens of sustainable travel and global human connection. She's a passionate advocate for sustainable living, and she speaks at major industry events like the World Travel Market, International Luxury Travel Market, TBS, and film festivals all over the world. Thank you so much, Michaela, for joining us today. How are you doing? Where are you calling in from?
Well, I am calling in from Los Angeles, and actually, where I normally stay, I also have had to flee. So I am actually at a friend's house who very nicely has a few of us that were kind of luckily our homes, and I don't have a home, but the home where I was staying, all of it's standing, but they are in zones that we cannot stay in at the moment. Air quality is not great. In fact, it is very much recommended when you go outside to wear a mask because of all the particulates that are in the air. Um, and I don't know, it's a sad coincidence that this is happening since we've had this call scheduled for so long. Um, and that is, there's 12 wildfires that are out there, and these do
Right.
happen in places like Los Angeles. And so, um, I can't say that they're a direct uh, connection to climate change, but they're certainly worse and stronger because of it, and because of the droughts that Southern California has had, and so that's allowed for the spread. So it's a sad state of affairs. We've been out there volunteering, and I mean, just I'm so lucky because I haven't directly lost anything, but so many of my friends have, and um, been doing a lot of volunteering just on a personal level. Like my mouth is very dry, my eyes are very dry. I'm having to put eye drops in all the time, wearing a mask, drinking lots of water. But yeah, we're doing donation runs and volunteering. And after this, I'm going to help relocate some vets that were evacuated from the VA. So it's just it's a beautiful thing because so many Angelinos are coming together, but it's also a really sad state of affairs. And this is going to be a decade long plus rebuild of Los Angeles.
Well, thank you for all the work you're doing out there. And can you kind of explain why the situation, I know you mentioned climate change briefly, but why it kind of ties into the sustainable travel talks that we're having today?
Oh, sure. I mean, climate change impacts all of us. Like we share a home. And so just be a good neighbor, right? And there's a whole slew of things that you can do from a really seemingly small thing to choosing hotel companies or travel companies or destinations that are really working very hard to make a big impact. And so, because I am a travel journalist and I am creating shows to help people navigate around the globe, what I really try to do is focus twofold, which is how to empower people to be responsible travelers, which at a basic level starts with asking questions and doing research. And then what are those sustainable travel companies? And there are companies that are doing it better than others. And I'll give an example. Mandarin Oriental, I just stayed at their Munich property for my first Oktoberfest, which was super fun. And here's a luxury travel company, but they have replaced all the individual plastic
Mhm.
bottles in the bathrooms, and they have refillable ones that are bolted to the wall. So now you can go in and you can still use their shampoo and their conditioner and everything, but you're not taking those little bottles away. And that might seem like a small thing, but by Mandarin Oriental doing that across their portfolio, they're 99% plastic free and have the goal to be so completely. But there's little things like the little liner in the toothpaste sachets that they have that still has little plastic. So they're
Right.
working with their suppliers. So it's not just them being like, we're not going to have plastic bottles anymore. It's stuff like the cling wrap in the kitchen to preserve the food so that there's less food waste. It's all connected. And it's actually quite complex. So kudos to Mandarin Oriental and other hotels for like really going after it. And so just to give you perspective, that by eliminating 99% of Mandarin Oriental's single-use plastics in the hotel, that's 1,000 metric tons of plastic saved every year.
Yeah.
That's a lot. And so if once one hotel company does it, the good news is they all then have to follow suit. And I saw this with Norwegian Cruise Lines before the pandemic,
Yeah.
eliminating single-use plastic and straws. And then guess what? All the other cruise lines had to do it. And so it's a really there's really great momentum in the travel industry, but as mentioned, it's not just them. They have to work with the provider that provides the cling wrap, the shampoo bottle, the toothpaste, like all these things. And then as a traveler, you could just be responsible and bring your own thing. But also, like, you're probably using a toothpaste that's in a plastic tub too in a travel size. So it's, it's there's not a perfect solution right now.
Yeah, the Placid Tots is near and dear to me. I ran our Placid program here at earthday.org for the past couple of years and recently transitioned over. So my traveling with my wife is really funny because we're always trying to find the most sustainable hotels and things and trying to find the most sustainable places to travel. But on that note, we talked earlier and you mentioned some of these sustainable cities that you've been to,
Mm.
Gothenburg, Copenhagen, and Singapore. I'd love to know which one of those is your favorite to visit, why, and then where did you stay and what made that stay sustainable and what made it truly stand out in your head, like your
Well,
world as a
I
traveler?
hate choosing favorites because I love all these destinations and people and experiences, um, because they're so unique and they give you a sense of place, right? But I recently filmed in Singapore, so
Mhm.
I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about that. And I don't know, in my head, I thought I was going to this like big urban environment. Um, I I don't know, I kind of just anticipated that it would be super polluted and crowded. It was literally one of the cleanest cities I've ever been to in my entire life. We were there with a global hotel alliance and we filmed across five of their hotels. Um, all five of those hotels actually had remarkable initiatives in the sustainability sector. We stayed at the Kempinski and the Capella, and each of them doing their own. Capella has solar panels across their entire hotel portfolio, and a brand that I was less familiar with, are the Park Royal collection, and they
Mhm.
all have green walls. Um, they have urban gardens. So imagine you're in the middle of this major city, and then on top of the hotel are all these urban gardens. They partner with local farms to come in and to maintain the gardens. And then the chefs are actually using the herbs from the gardens, like in the produce and in the food that they're serving the guests. So I found that a really wonderful initiative. But there's a brand new hotel and it's called the Pan Pacific Orchard. It's when I say totally LEED certified, it took LEED certified to the next level. They have these giant fans that are like going because it's
And
sticky
LEED,
in
LEED
Singapore.
certification is a certification for eco-friendly buildings and making sure these buildings are following sustainability practices, right?
Yes, I would be shocked if they're, and I don't know, I have not fact checked this. Like, I would be shocked if they are not one of the most sustainable hotels and or buildings. When you go in, this giant fans, like fans the size of a room, are going through their lobby, which is partially outdoors, and it's literally like spinning air and cooling from the inside out. It's really wild. They took all their rainwater and they're collecting it and their black water and they're making it into all these beautiful water like features throughout the hotel so it looks like a nice fountain, but actually that's like their water filtration system where they're going in and purifying and cleansing and then resurfacing the hotel with that. They have solar panels on the roof, they have extensive green space, but then in each room, not only are they using they don't have the single use plastic bottles, but in each room, they have a water spigot where you can have your own bottle of water or still or sparkling. And it's a reusable bottle and reusable glasses in every single room. And it's like, wow, that's like next level that they did that in every single hotel room.
So one once you're on the ground in these places, how do you travel around these cities sustainably? Do you prefer to take a bike? Do you prefer to walk around? I know when I'm traveling, I tend to walk, but I walk like a crazy person at like 15 miles per hour, and everybody's telling me to slow down. My wife is the same way, but I would love to hear how you usually get around these cities and making sure that you're leaving,
Mm.
leaving the smallest eco footprint.
Well, I lived in New York for 21 years, and I'm just a walker.
Yeah,
I love walking. I think the health app, you're suggested to have 10,000 steps a day. Like I try to get 18 to 20,000 steps. Like I love walking. Los Angeles is a conundrum to me. I'll go running around and walking, and people are like, "Where are you?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm walking there." And they're like, "What are you talking about?" People, it's not as common out here, even though we have like the most amazing weather. So it's a strange dichotomy that I'm still navigating. But when you can biking, I remember when City Bike first came to New York City, I was one of the first people to get on board with that. The electric bikes scare me, I'm not gonna lie. Um, the scooters, I have tried those a few times out in Los Angeles. I find them a little life-threatening, but that also is because the drivers are a little crazy. So
I feel
but
the
to
same way.
me,
Don't worry.
walking is a great way to get around. It's a wonderful way to see a city. I again, like I even try to do it when I'm in Santa Monica or Venice, or just kind of be in a neighborhood and get about. You also don't have to deal with parking. But I just spent a month in Portugal, and I loved walking across Lisbon. Talk about getting some steps in there. Wow. There's some some altitude, but also like it's crazy cobblestone. So just throwing, it's a good excuse to wear sneakers and be able to get out and about and see a place. And also then you find that little coffee shop that the locals are in. Like because you're on foot, you're like more aware. You see that little shop down that weird little alley and you go explore it. And so that's definitely my favorite way to get around, and you're getting good exercise. I mean, trains are the most sustainable form of transportation, and in a good way. There's so many luxury trains are coming back. I mean, Belmond is bringing back, the Orient Express and that like the grandeur of traveling by train. But even if you're going from like New York to Washington, D.C. for the inauguration, like hop on the train. It's the easiest way to get there. Train stations drop you off in both cities, right in the middle of the city. You can easily get a taxi or a ride share. But pre-pandemic, I did ride shares across New York all the time.
Mhm.
With the pandemic, obviously that went away. It's making a comeback. I don't see as much of a cost savings as I did before the pandemic for doing so. Um, but yeah, I mean, when I was starting to look into, carbon emissions and everything, I think the secret number is 2.03. And so if you can have 2.03 people in your car, that becomes more sustainable than, flying. So I always say if it's a short haul and you can drive with 1.03 other people, let me know what that zero point zero 0.03
Right.
person looks like. If you so three or more, if you can get two extra people and go to where you're going, that is one of the more sustainable ways to do so. And especially if you're doing like a hybrid or an electric vehicle, I will caveat, as we did in our conversation before this, I think electric vehicles have some ways to go, and we need to figure out this drilling for batteries and what happens to the batteries after they're gone or done. Um, but I think the effort is going into getting there. To me, I don't own a car, and I've always done car shares, or right now I am borrowing a friend's electric vehicle. It is kind of crazy. I charged it for the first time yesterday, and it's interesting. It's beeping at me. I'm sure it's filming me. I don't know. I don't know. It's smarter than me for sure. Um, but no, I think just being conscious of it and making an effort. And if everybody just made a little bit of an effort, like I always try to encourage people, because when I'm filming things, if I'm in Cambodia, we might be focusing on human trafficking, and if I'm in Africa, we might be focused on wildlife poaching, and if I'm in Australia, we might be focused on the deterioration of the Great Barrier Reef. And all of these things are real problems impacting those people and places where we're at, but they ultimately will become all of our problem because it's all contributing to our environment. And so I think it's really important to not get overwhelmed by all the problems and to choose a challenge that is one that directs you impactly or that moves you. And then really just double down on that one, focus on the one thing and be like the champion of change for that one thing, and like get involved and get your friends involved and like just educate people on how they could do something simple every day in their life to make a positive impact towards that challenge. And if everybody just did one thing, it would make a huge difference. I'm even thinking right now, the unfortunately the VA, all of our veterans out here in Los Angeles, 500 of them just got off the streets and into this permanent and temporary housing, and now they're all being evacuated. And a lot of them don't want to go back into the homeless shelters because it feels like moving backwards. It's causing trauma for them. And so my friend has an organization. It's the Global Band of Brothers, the Global Women's Foundation and the Band of Brothers, and they've come together to help these 500 vets. Are trying to build a retreat facility in the Simi Valley. But the the great news is right now everybody's coming together, and like after this, I'm going to take one vet over to a friend's house who's stuck in London to go watch her cat till she comes back. And that it solves two problems because my friend's cat is all by itself and she is like freaking out. And then this guy who is now evacuated from his home has a place to stay till he can get back into his. So it just there's all these wonderful like little pockets of stories, but that's you're helping one person, and how wonderful is that? And if your cats are your thing or plastic's your thing, like if you just become that one champion of change, that makes a really big difference. I mean, if everybody stopped, I mean, look what that turtle
I
movie did to the
know.
straws industry. Like, oh, cow. So it really can make huge impact when people get involved and realize that differences and changes could happen just at a very grassroots level.
So for the individual wanting to travel overseas or fly or that, what questions are you asking the airlines? What questions are you looking towards the airlines? What tools are you using to make sure your flight's the most sustainable? Flying can be one of the most carbon emitting things. So
Mm,
what tools do you use yourself to make sure you're at least being as sustainable as possible when flying?
sure. I mean, I think it's always good to be aware, right? And so
Yeah.
to me, to the end traveler, I always say it's up to you to do your research and
Mhm.
to ask questions. And so looking at okay, I'm flying from here to there, and that's the only way to get there, and that's okay. But now what is my carbon footprint from that? And is there a way that you can offset carbon emissions? Or is there an airline that you could fly instead of this one because they're doing more to help offset that? Um, I will say to all my business class flying friends that, unfortunately, the more space that you take up on a plane, kind of the less sustainable that is. I'm not saying you shouldn't fly business class. I mean, look, is it way nicer when you fly 19 hours to be in a business class seat than the middle and economy? Yes. Yes, it is. Um, but like, what can you do to offset that in the interim? Nonstop flights are actually more sustainable because just if you think about it, the emissions that are released, the most harmful ones are at takeoff and at landing. So the less time you're taking off and landing, the less you're contributing to the problem. And again, like the more kind of like when you have carpool, the more you carpool, the more you're on a plane, the more people that are moving at one time, kind of the less of the impact. So I do appreciate that planes try to fly full, because that makes a lot of sense. Believe it or not, even like packing lighter,
Right.
every extra bit of weight that is on the plane causes more emissions. So, just again, those little things, if everybody brought like a couple less things, or like I'm not telling you to fly less. I mean, like I literally do this as a living, But yeah, I mean, is there an option to take a train? I did an entire train trip across Italy a couple summers ago. I loved it. It was so easy getting around. You don't have to deal with getting to and from the airport. You like literally walk onto the train. You don't have to go through security. Like it was just so much easier and more delightful. And you just go on your seat and like everything's hunky dory and you're there and there's high speed trains and I don't know. Trains are not always an option, but they are a great option when you have them. And then like as it relates to, I'm trying to think, we haven't really talked about like wind and solar,
I was going to
but
ask, we're seeing all those new technologies coming out with like wind and solar powered ships and wind and solar powered trains. Like, are you willing to ride on one of those? Like, what are you excited about
I
the?
haven't. Well, so first up, I haven't tried Waymo. Like, do you know these like carless drivers that are going around Los Angeles?
Oh no.
I see them, and like one of them will pull up next to me, and you're just like, "Hmm, there's no one driving that car. That's so weird." And like the only time I will say, I was like, for the most part, they seem like very precautious drivers. But there was one scenario where someone was like driving like a maniac, and like it was through like one of those roundabouts and the Waymo like got into the roundabout past that driver and the driver like kept going and I don't know the Waymo ended up just going in circles around the roundabout. I'm like, oh God, I hope no one's in the back of that car because it looks confused. So I'm not totally sold on all of that yet. But I think it's all coming. I don't think it's going backwards. What I will say is when I was in Portugal, I had been once right before the pandemic, but Portugal, they actually, I just looked something up on them actually. Um, I was so impressed because they had literally wind farms just up and down. We were at the Octant, which is a Portuguese owned brand in Douro, which is beautiful valley, near a lot of like the wine producing region. And we were out on this riverboat and it's stunningly beautiful. And at times I almost felt like I was in Alaska, just so green. And then you look up and there's just all these wind farms and like beautiful windmills. And I was like, wow, this is stunning. And in the south of Portugal, they have all these solar fields because it's dry and sunny and it's sunny almost all year. So I'm very impressed by what they're doing. And I looked this up this morning. Um, Portugal had adopted the Portuguese framework climate law in 21, and that's helping the country achieve carbon neutrality by 2050. So it's really amazing. Again, like can you not produce a carbon footprint? It's almost near impossible, but like what else can you do to
Right.
help offset it? And I mean, you have to make sure you're working with reliable companies and organizations to do that as well. So, there's always, unfortunately, some bad apples out there that try to take advantage of things. So,
Well, we're about to run out of time, but thank you so much for joining us. I just have one more question for you,
yeah.
and that's what are your plans for Earth Day? Where are you going to be? Do you think? Do you know where you're going to be at April 22nd?
Yeah, so well, I mean, as a digital nomad that kind of flits in the breeze to based on where we're filming. But I think I'm going to be filming my show Sleeping Around Safely and Oh the People You Meet on board a new cruise line. It's called Explora Journeys. They just launched their second ship. But really excitingly, I was looking into some of the things that they're doing. And because they're newer ships, they have partnered with the top of the line in shipbuilders to make sure that they are hybrid ready energy. They have like
Right.
top of the line waste management solutions and as well as energy saving. There's no single use plastic on board or ashore. So for any of their programs. And they have six ships by the end, I think it's by 2027. Let me double check that. But they have two now, soon six, but they're all going to be RENA Dolphin certified, and that actually reduces the underwater noise so that it's
Oh,
not
great.
disturbing the marine life. Yeah, so it's like things that we don't even think about. But if you're a cruiser, like I'd never even heard of that. And I've been in the travel industry for over 20 years. And so it's they're just like going beyond waste management and solar to also protecting our oceans and the environment. And they're owned by a parent company, which is called MSC. And MSC have an amazing foundation. It's a nonprofit, and they are supporting organizations and communities all over the world where they port their ships. And so not only do they help employ people from the various markets in which they sail, but now they're also supporting through different initiatives and things that guests can go experience.
Well, thank you so much, Michaela. Our heart at earthday.org goes out to you and all those in LA. We really hope
Thank you.
something comes of it, and we hope that everybody gets the support they need. Thank you for all the work you're doing with the vets over there. But is there any last plugs you'd like to do? Anything you'd like to say to everybody before we hop off?
Oh, I mean, I hope you'll pack a bag and journey on with me. I'm Michaela Guzy, and Oh the People You Meet on Instagram and Facebook and all those places. But I seriously, in the case of LA, if you want to help, I mean, I have a link in my bio right now. There's someone called the Venice Helping Hub, and they help with like donations or people that want to drive. But the LA Fire Department, give them all the love you can. If you want to send them things like energy drinks or even donations, like this is going to be a long fight and a long rebuild. I mean, the Palisades and Altadena are totally decimated, but this is a perfect case in point. Like, if you love dogs and animals, like there's shelters that need your help there. And, if you want to protect our environment, we need some clean air solutions out here ASAP. There's so many organizations, and I'll continue to put things as links in my bio. And yeah, and I think, travel, be as conscious as possible. Oh, can I give you a quote? So I
Yes,
interviewed Dr. Jane Goodall, who's my she hero in Sierra Leone. You can watch the episode on MLux. And she
you have no
describes
idea how
sustainability.
excited last year I was put in a magazine like near her, like not even like I had
You're
this little tiny thing. She had 4 pages, and I was like showing it to my whole entire family, like, look, look, and they're like,
you're like,
"Who's Dr.
she
Jane
is my
Goodall?"
hero. No, I mean, look, she is a leader in all the things. And even though she became known for,
Yeah.
saving chimpanzees, um, in reality, she is a conservation, climate change, sustainability, like ultimate guru. And she described sustainability as a three-legged stool. And she said, if you can protect the wildlife and you can protect the environment, but if the people, the local people, don't feel the inbound tourism dollars, that direct impact of the money coming in, the stool will never stand on its own. You try sitting on a two-legged stool, doesn't work. So I was like, that's a really great and basic way to break it down. And kind of my "Oh, the People You Meet" spin on that is, we need responsible travelers and we need sustainable travel companies. And where we're at is at the intersection of what I call regenerative travel. So we need both of those things to really go forward and move together, because you can have the most sustainable travel company, but if you've got someone over here that's like throwing trash on the street and um, drinking out of plastic bottles, it doesn't go together. So we all have to do our part and work together to save our lovely mutual home.
Well, thank you so much, Michaela. I appreciate you coming on today, and I hope to talk to you again soon.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Happy Earth
everybody,
Day
for joining.
almost.
Happy Earth Day almost. 3 months, a little bit over 3 months out. So we're looking forward to
Countdown
it.
on.
Yeah, that countdown's been on for me for a while, but thank you so much. Really appreciate
Thank you. Ciao.
it.